with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live from the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to Monday. It's a hazy Monday. It's like all of a sudden it's July. But Boomer's on the board. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Hey, July, Monday. Monday, July.
Suddenly it feels like Alabama summer. I mean, like it's been like, I was thinking the other day, it's been like kind of moderate. I'll drive home in the afternoon with the windows down in the Jeep, you know. No, not right now.
That hot humidity, that fun, hot, humid summer.
My thing is, my favorite thing on the weekends is to get up early, you know, and go sit outside with a cup of coffee and just like watch the sun come up and look at the water and all that. No. I was sitting out there just sweating, like sitting out there sweating. It's like 7 or 6:30 in the morning. So I thought, this is not good. Hey, you doing all right?
But it's Monday and we're here. That's right.
It is indeed. By golly, and the air conditioning's on.
Yes.
Whoop, whoop. Hey, little man.
Oh, little man won the championship. I know y'all were all wondering.
Applause. Got to have applause.
There
for
we
that.
go. There we go.
Yeah, got
applause. He won it. They won it by a walk-off hit. So,
really?
Yeah.
So they were like putting the wood to people for days and days, and they went down to like a squeaker at the very end.
They did. They were down by 2 runs in the bottom of the 6th inning, and got 2 outs, and they're like, oh boy! And then they came back with 2 outs. So I was proud of him.
Was he feeling kind of bossy afterwards?
Yeah, he was a little too bossy.
Dad, I'm a champion. What are you going to do?
But thanks for asking. Yeah, he did awesome. So
that's awesome. All right. Hey, we got a great show laid on for you. 4 o'clock today. Dr. Scott Catino, who runs the Faith, Family, and Freedom Coalition of Mobile, Alabama, is going to call in. We're going to talk with him about his organization, about what they do, and then also, by the way, they are leading the charge against the annexation of a large chunk of West Mobile County. That would, if it happened by vote of the people, by the way, if it happened, it would mean that Mobile would become the second biggest city in the state. Now, that's going to be in conjunction with the Third Dipper, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But yeah, 4 o'clock today, Dr. Scott Catino, he'll be on the line with us. And then I got a Triple Dipper, so hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So number 1, I'm going back to it, the Green New Steel. I mean, let me ask you a question. Be pondering this. What exactly does John Kerry do? Do we know? Or does he just fly around getting wined and dined by world leaders and attending conferences in his private jet? Yeah, the Green New Steel. We'll talk about that plus several other aspects of the latest trends in them attempting to steal our livelihood under the auspices of environmentalism. But number 1, the Green New Steel. Number 2, O Canada. I believe that the national anthem for Canada is called O Canada. And there's a line in there about preserving our freedom. I don't know if you saw some of the headlines just this past weekend, but I'm concerned, have we lost Canada? I mean, are they just no longer among us? I know they've moved more and more towards socialism, but it's become more of a tyrannical socialism. I'm just concerned that our neighbor to the north, which we interact with on a regular basis, which has teams in our hockey league and our baseball, I'm just saying, I'm afraid we've lost Canada. We'll talk about it in great detail. You might want to know. And then number 3, here's the deal. I'm calling this sharing the battle space. You know, I can just tell you for a fact when, like for instance, when I was in Baghdad, you have to know who's in your AO. You don't want to risk fratricide. You also don't want somebody else stepping over into your turf, so to speak, and doing operations that you could then wind up having to answer to. And we had some situations like that. So you got to know who's there. Well, the same is true, in my opinion, for knowing what conservative groups or alliances are operating right here in Alabama. You may want to get involved. We're going to talk about that. Every day this week, I have a different conservative group lined up to come on at 4 o'clock, and we're going to talk about who's out there, who you might want to participate with, and understanding the mission of who's sharing the battle space. That's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, well, let me jump over here to my comments. And I will remind you guys, by the way, that our newest sponsor, Southern Immediate Care, is a clinic, a chain of clinics all over the Birmingham area. Southern Immediate Care is now the sponsor of the daily monologue, The Rightside Way, and we certainly appreciate it. You'll hear more about them later in the show. Let me just jump in there, though. And I'll tell you, I'm inspired by people, real people, who do amazing things. I mean, especially when those real people do those amazing things despite all odds being against them. Now, I don't know your particular situation, but I feel certain that almost everybody that can hear my voice has had something happen in your life that seemed to bring your hopes, your dreams, your possibilities to a halt. And then you were faced with that moment in time where you had to make a choice. Do I continue on in spite of the setback? Or do I stop now, take my losses, and call it done? Only you can determine the answer to that question. But I do know this: there is nothing new under the sun. We are told in 1 Corinthians 10:13 that there is no such thing as a temptation that you're enduring that someone else hasn't already endured, and that God will give us the strength to endure and to overcome. Now, that verse is specifically related to temptation. But I believe it's accurate to say that disappointments are nothing new either. There is no such thing as a setback or a trial, a disappointment that somebody else has not already lived through. Let me tell you about one guy who overcame something and did things that everyone said could not be done. All right, so I'm a kid of the 80s, right? As you might imagine, just from hearing my personality, soft rock was never my thing. It was only good for like slow dancing at homecoming. Generally speaking, when I drove my 68 Mustang around Huntsville in the early 80s, I was listening to Boston or Journey or Styx or Bad Company. And when I was getting pumped up for something or just feeling my oats a bit, I cranked up some Def Leppard. Now, regardless of how you feel about rock music in general, and especially Def Leppard, you need to know the story of their drummer, Rick Allen. So Rick Allen, he was a drum prodigy. He was playing gigs in Sheffield, England when he was 13. At 14 years old, his mom answered a want ad for him for some unknown up-and-coming band looking for a drummer. That band was Def Leppard. So he auditioned. By the time he was 16, he was playing major gigs and even opening for AC/DC. The world was his oyster at 16 years old. So their first two albums, Def Leppard, met with some success. They had a reasonable hit over in England. But in 1983, they released an album called Pyromania, which had two singles that hit the top of the charts, and the album itself went platinum. At 20 years old, 20, Rick Allen and the rest of the band had hit the big time. And Rick pursued his dream, and he bought himself a brand new Corvette. But the very next year, Rick and his girlfriend were driving the Corvette along country roads in England. Another car came racing alongside them, actually ran them off the road. They both survived. His girlfriend had to be cut from the wreckage. But Allen actually came to his senses standing in a field a short distance away from the car that had rolled multiple times, and he was standing there missing his left arm. Doctors tried to reattach the arm. They were nearly successful, but gangrene set in, and they had to remove it again all the way up at the shoulder. Now, you can imagine what the band was thinking. And I'll tell you that despite everything you might think of a younger generation suddenly getting fame and fortune, they did not forget their guy. In their own words, Rick is in the band until he isn't. So what about Rick? Well, you can imagine that he was devastated. His whole career depended upon having two arms, two hands, the ability to wield two drumsticks. It wasn't like he was a computer programmer or an accountant or someone who writes or speaks for a living. He was a drummer, and no one had ever heard of a one-armed drummer. His general recovery went well. He had to relearn everything, all of his life skills from tying his shoes to brushing his teeth. All of it had to be relearned. But what about drums? So he told the band to start practicing, but not to count him out. And they were dubious, but they were like a bunch of brothers, so they indulged him. He was told he would be in the hospital for like up to 6 months. He was out in 30 days. He was told he would need time after that to rest and recuperate, but 2 weeks after his discharge from the hospital, he flew out to meet the band to work on a new album. But he wasn't yet playing with the band. He was in a separate studio with the door shut, practicing for hours on a drum set unlike any before. You see, a friend of his had told him that a new technology existed, and he had checked it out. So the designers at Simmons Drum Company, they met with him. After taking down all of his thoughts and his dreams, his requests, they had engineered and built an electronic drum set that had multiple pedals. Those pedals created an intricate amount of footwork. Pedals in sequence could make the drums come alive, and combined with his right arm still going, it had the potential because it was only a concept, but the potential to make a full drum sound. Those pedals were all laid out for his feet in a row. And barefoot, he would work those pedals. It was almost as if Rick Allen would be dancing and playing the drums all at the same time, if he could master the incredibly intricate sequences. So Allen stayed locked away in his studio for 3 weeks, coming out to have meals with the band and then go right back to it. One of his bandmates said this. He said he'd be in there just playing and playing. He wanted to make all the mistakes on his own. And then he called us in one day and he said, "Listen to this." And he played "When the Levee Breaks," and we all ended up crying. He said, at that moment, I think we all started to believe. The rest is history. Def Leppard, with Rick Allen as their one-armed drummer, went on to achieve levels of success unlike any before. With 2 of their albums reaching diamond status with sales of over 10 million each, they are one of only 5 bands to ever reach that level, alongside the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, and Van Halen. In 2019, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, all with a one-armed drummer who many said would never play again. Rick Allen could have quit. He could have accepted that his career was over and no one would have blamed him. It would have made sense to retire. I mean, after all, who ever heard of a guy with one arm playing drums in a rock band? Rick Allen still plays with the band today at 60 years old. He and his wife formed a nonprofit called the Raven Drum Foundation in 2001. Their primary focus has been on helping military amputees in their recovery, with drums being part of the focus. And Rick hasn't led a stellar life. He acknowledges he should have gone to counseling early on. He got into substance abuse. But he has been an overcomer and an inspiration all at the same time. So yeah, I don't know your situation. Life can be hard. It can be very hard. It can be brutal even. I don't know your story. You may have had times when it made perfect sense to quit. I mean, who would question it? But somewhere in you, there may be that grit, that resolve, that understanding that God is so, so big and that nothing is new in this world. And someone somewhere has already gone through what you're going through or worse. And maybe you just needed to hear about a one-armed drummer to get you up and moving. So get her done, folks. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, there's some encouragement for you. I'm telling you, when you read some of the stories about what people do, what they overcome, you're like, I got no problems. I can do what I got to do. I'm going to tell you, a one-armed drummer inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with 90% of his career playing with one arm. That's pretty epic. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. All right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right, making it cool to be a conservative. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. By the way, I named that monologue. Some of y'all may or may not know this. Every one of the monologues has a title. So if you're going to like our podcast, you want to catch a monologue and see it afterwards, it's going to have a title to it. It'll say Rightside Way with a name. That one is titled Rightside Way, It's Better to Burn Out Than to Fade Away. That's a line from a Def Leppard song. I had to use it. I mean, that's the whole point. So he chose not to fade away. That's the deal. Rick Allen chose not to fade away in this case. He chose to keep moving. He would much rather burn out than to fade away. And now I'm going to be singing that in my head. It's just
the whole day.
Yeah.
And tonight when you're going to sleep.
It's better to burn out. Yeah, okay, I got it. Hey, text lines are open, like I said, 833-68-RIGHT, brand spanking new in the text string. We're glad to have Metal Man Josh from Elkmont. That's Metal Man Josh from Elkmont. He got a location there for you now, boom. John from Huntsville texted in. By the way, John from Huntsville, I forgot to mention on Friday, I don't know if you saw this, Boomer, our gradings from John, we got preempted by Wolverine Dan. He said, Phil, I was going to give you the victory. Then Wolverine Dan came on and knocked it way out of the park and made me proud to be an American. So he receives an A++ and takes home today's first place trophy, which is a very large and imaginary solid gold radio. Imaginary, getting the key word. I got an A+. Boomer gets a solid A and needs to add some baseball sound effects and ukulele music to make things work. But anyway, he went on to say, since Wolverine Dan received an A++ from me on Friday and won the show for his extra epic rant, I've decided to cast my vote for him to be the next guest for any co-host on Boomer and the Blank segment.
Boomer and Buds.
Boomer, yeah, hit your mic.
There we go.
Yeah, Boomer and the Blank.
Yeah, Boomer and Buds. That's what it is.
Boomer and Buds. It's the Boomer Buds episode. That's good. That might work, actually.
It might work.
Yeah. All right, Frank from Huntsville, your story about Def Leppard reminded me of a professional bass fisherman that has no arms and no legs. He's from North Alabama. That's crazy cool. I did not know this. Wow. I'm just curious about that. I guess somebody else has to bait his hook for him. And are there rules then? I mean, I guess somebody else can't cast for you when you're a bass tournament fisherman. So he's got to have some means of doing that. Hey, send me his name, Frank from Huntsville. I'd love to check that out. Maybe find out if we can get him on the show one day. Allie from Athens, if a one-armed drummer can make it happen, the rest of us need to get her done. There you go. There you go. Leanne from Huntsville says, Boomer, after that great Rick Allen story, you cut to commercial with Van Halen? I can't believe my ears. That's true. We should have done I should have primed you.
You primed me up.
It's because I didn't give him a heads up what I was doing. In fact, I actually teased it beforehand. I said, "Hey, you know who Rick Allen, the drummer?" And so anyway, my fault.
I just didn't even think right before the show.
My fault. Yeah, I should have primed the pump on that. It was my fault. And then Cameron from Decatur says, I think Neil Young said it best when he said it's better to burn out. It's better to burn out than to rust in the song, Hey, Hey, My, My. Yeah, I like the Def Leppard version. Anyway, all right, hey, plenty of doings, all right? Plenty of doings today. We're going to come right back in a minute. Start off the Triple Dippers with the green new steel, and that's my phrase. It's a recurring thing. I mean, I've got a number of recurring segments now, but green new steel, that's because I keep trying to steal stuff. At some point, they're going to run out of stuff to steal. Then what? But the green new steel is on, and I got to ask you, as part of this section, the question needs to be dealt with, what does John Kerry actually do? He's the first ever appointed climate czar. He's a special envoy for climate change. Special envoy for climate change, which sounds like a total gimme, right? Kerry's been around for a while. What are we going to do with him? I don't know. What do you want to do? Make him something special. Okay, special envoy climate change. Perfect. Notice they didn't call Al Gore. But yeah, we're going to talk about it. What does he actually do? By the way, who's on his staff? Oh, he won't tell us. What? Yes. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That would be this one, Alabama. I ain't kidding. And I mean, this show sends its signal like way on down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi. Thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, thanks to Frank from Huntsville. He just sent me the update. Wow, man, this guy's incredible. His name is Clay Dyer. He's from Hamilton. He's a professional. I was telling Boomer during the break, I got to read this out loud, though. He was born without any lower limbs, no arm on his left side, only a partial arm on his right side. His motto for life is, if I can, you can. Wow. Says his physical limitations would not dampen his determination or his positive spirit. He started fishing at the age of 5 and began tournament fishing at age 15. He refuses to use special equipment. He casts by tucking the rod under his jaw, whipping it around with a quick left to right twist, and he reels fish in while holding the end of the rod under his chin. He ties knots with his tongue and unhooks fish with his teeth. And he fishes on the Bassmaster Open Series. In over 200 bass tournaments, he's placed first in approximately 20. God, that's amazing. He's actually sponsored by Orca Coolers, Strike King Lures, Ranger Boats, and Mercury Marine. That is just crazy cool. He's from Hamilton, Alabama. Did not know this, Frank from Huntsville. All right, I'm going to see if we can figure out how to get hold of him. We'll track that down. Thank you very much, Frank. Appreciate that. And Mark from Red Bay, on the topic of the First Dipper, just chimed in and said, John Kerry's job is to fly around the world in a private jet yelling that the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Indeed. Listen, I'm going to walk through this. Let me prelude this by saying there have been a few interesting developments. By the way, climate change is being blamed for the fact that it's hot right now. It's July. I'll just throw that out there. I'm assuming that means then that climate change wasn't much of a factor in January, but it certainly is apparently in July when it's notoriously hot. It's Alabama, by the way. I mean, the haze by the last couple of days from the haze has just been unbelievable. Here's a story on Red State. Story came out yesterday. Extreme heat, we're all going to die. Actually, no. Says the news is full of terror stories about how this is the hottest day in the history of the earth. And temperatures shatter records. And once in a millennium storm hit New York City. You might be thinking, geez, am I going to make it through the week? Anyway, your odds are good, by the way. Says a deeper dive tells us a different story. What they also neglect to tell you is that the phrase in recorded history stands for an infinitesimal amount of time because humans have only been recording temperatures and weather phenomena with accuracy for a very tiny amount of the Earth's actual age. They go on to say, too, that the Washington Post and others like that, they like to scaremonger. And they want to imply that we're all at dire risk from a July heat wave. Here's they said, quote, extreme heat kills more people in the United States than any other weather hazard. And that's a first claim in a Washington Post piece, which is almost certainly false. This goes on and on and on, y'all. I mean, the level of sensationalism regarding the climate. Now, do I believe that we should take care of our planet? Sure I do. Of course I do. I'm the guy who will pick up trash as I'm walking past it. I'm the guy who believes in taking good care of what you've got. I believe we should be good stewards of the earth. We should not be slaves to the earth. But he goes on to say here that despite all the sensationalism about how hot it is, well, it says all extreme weather accounts for only about 0.1 deaths for every 100,000 people in the United States, which is a massive drop, by the way, from the era of our grandparents. Why? Because air conditioning has become the norm, because the capability of having shelter is more readily accessible. So it says buying an EV, ditching your gas stove, banning wood-burning pizza ovens, turning off your air conditioner is likely going to have zero effect, especially when you consider that China is building a new coal factory every week. But they don't care. They don't. So I'm going to lead off this Green New Steel discussion by saying, once again, I'm a firm believer in what I would call the all-of-the-above strategy. Do I care if you want to have a wind farm? Depends where you want to put it. Do I care if you want to have a solar array? Okay. Do I care if you want to put solar panels on your house or have your own personal windmill? Fine. Pretty sure we'd also better keep drilling. I'm also pretty sure we better start investing in nuclear again. We're going to let environmentalists drive us into ruin. Oh, but, wow, things will be better. No, they won't. Quality of life's going to suck. So all I'm saying is this. There is no way to do this responsibly and in good fashion without hurting people in the process. But they're saving us. No, they're really not. Here's an example. This is a story that came out yesterday. Did you know, Boomer, I think this is going to wind up being a cow fart story again, just so you know. It's that cow flatulence, man. It'll get you every time. Every time. European countries are working hard to meet their climate change goals. Amidst the efforts, some glorious ideas that need a golden page in history have become a reality. Here's the headline. You ready? This comes from a source called Up India. Ireland. Farmers on the streets as government wants to kill 200,000 cows to meet its climate change goals. They want to kill off the herd. I mean, they're not even going about this like, okay, by direct attrition, we're going to restrict the size of your herds, which I still think would be farcical. But their solution, and I shouldn't laugh because it's real, but their solution is, looks like we're going to have to kill off a couple 100,000 cows. Really? Where's PETA, by the way, right now?
Yeah.
I mean,
where are they?
Apparently they're nowhere to be found.
Do they just not want to jump in on this?
I don't know. Maybe they're scared.
I was about to say they're scared.
Yeah. Lord. It says the government of Ireland is considering killing 200,000 healthy cows to meet their climate change goals. The Irish government wants to kill 65,000 cows every year for 3 years, and if they succeed, it will reduce the country's livestock by a mere 10%. 10%. Still, 10% is a lot when you're the farmer who's losing cattle for no other reason. It says recently on the 13th of July, 2,000 farmers went to and had a rally in a place called Bandon, Ireland. They expressed their frustrations, their fears over a potential cut. IFA poultry chairman Nigel Sweetenham said, "This is not just a dairy problem, it's a problem for the whole rural economy. If you take cows and production out of the economy, it will have major effects." In other words, all of agribusiness is saying, stop this madness. Because you know what's going to happen. If they can get the cows, next they'll get the pigs. If they can get the pigs, next they're going to get the chickens. If they can get the chickens, well, then they got to figure out whether or not they want to go for the fish. Once they get the fish, what's left? Lab-grown meat. I know. It's that. Once again, we're back to, let's don't go with the natural. Let's create a false version and call it real. According to the news source called The Trumpet in Ireland, the project would cost Ireland $640 million and result in reducing the emissions by 25%. Emissions, by the way, meaning cow farts. The proposal will be offered to the aging farmers first as a retirement exit scheme. In other words, hey, you're about to retire? Let's buy up your cattle. We'll do that. They're looking at giving them upwards of €5,000 per cow. Not sure how that translates into whether it's good business, but I can tell you this, they ain't going for it. It says ag representatives, farmers, and some politicians even have called it absolute madness. This is the Green New Steel. If you won't give us what we want, we're going to take it. It's almost like, can they have eminent domain on cows? Apparently. At least I think they can. I don't know if they're going to get away with it or not. But right now, the intent is absolutely to try and get away with it. Now, let me add one more for the break, and then we'll jump over to John Kerry. Charlene and I had a discussion about this one. Did she mean to say that? Was she reading the teleprompter wrong? You may have heard about Kamala Harris. Of course, every time she gives a speech, with Biden, you wonder, is he going to get through the sentence? With her, you wonder, is the sentence going to be understandable? I mean, it's like word salad. Like she just like vomits words everywhere. So at town hall, White House does damage control after Kamala Harris claims that reducing the world's population is critical for climate change. What? I mean, when she said that, the whole world kind of sat up straight and went, did she just say that? So the White House scrambled to clean up the mess the Biden administration left after Vice President Kamala Harris claimed reducing the population is needed to combat so-called climate change. Here's her quote. When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water. Well, that's if they're there, I guess. I mean, if you're reducing the population. Anyway, the White House quickly corrected in the transcript of speech, claiming she meant to say reduce pollution as opposed to reduce population. Was she reading a teleprompter? I don't know. I mean, it's worth going back and looking at the video and trying to decide if she was reading a teleprompter wrong, which can happen. I mean, I really have a hard time believing the Vice President of the United States is going to get up there and go, I'm going to talk about exterminating a large segment of the population. That's going to go over swimmingly. No. All right, here's where we are. Those three things happened in the last few days. But what also happened in regards to the Green New Steel is that the illustrious John Kerry, former Secretary of State, former U.S. Senator, former war protester, former presidential candidate, he's now the special envoy for climate change, touring the world. He had to testify before Congress the other day. He took issue with the very idea that he should have to answer to anybody. Don't you know who he is? That's the way it felt. Yeah, we'll talk about what he said, what he didn't say, and really ask the question, what does he freaking do? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, making common sense a superpower. Text lines are indeed open. That's 833-687-4448, otherwise known as 833-68-RIGHT. You text it on in. That's also the call-in number. We'll take it. Jeff from Indiana just texted in and says, Phil, how long is it going to be before I start wanting to get rid of humans? They fart too. This show is descending into a bad place. And they contribute exponentially to global warming gases, so I guess after they kill off the cows, they'll be coming for you. Well, that's the reason why everybody's like, what did Kamala Harris just say? So, Jeff, I think your question may have come in before I said that Kamala Harris had just said reducing population. I think it's pretty reasonable that they're talking about reducing pollution, but you still have to look at this and go, okay, first the cows, then the pigs, and then while we're at it, let's just go ahead and go with the old Chinese one-child policy. Wow. What else we got here? Jay from Fairhope texted in and says, CO2 is plant food. Keep up the great work. Good enough. All right, so John Kerry. John Kerry testifies the other day in front of the House Foreign Affairs Committee's Oversight Committee. And you look at some of this and you think, well, what is he doing? So first of all, just so you know, Kerry took the position he's in right now in 2021, like shortly after Biden was tapped for president. So Biden's sworn in. Next thing you know, Kerry's got a new job. Doing what? Yeah, he's the special presidential envoy for climate. Whatever that means. It's a position that has never existed before, didn't require Senate approval, no confirmation necessary, gives him a spot on the president's cabinet, but gives him a spot on the National Security Council? Really? How can we have anybody on the National Security Council with a made-up position? Anyway, the SPEC office is housed over at State Department, has an estimated $13.9 million annual budget, has approval for 45 personnel on staff. And since taking the role, story here from Fox News, Kerry has traveled worldwide, attended high-profile climate summits and diplomatic engagements in an effort to push global transition away from fossil fuels to green energy alternatives. Meanwhile, he flies there usually in a personal jet. Okay. Yeah, the hypocrisy knows no bounds. I guess at the very least, couldn't he go over there by balloon or something? I mean, there's got to be a way. Ask his friends in China how those balloons work. They'll tell you all about it. I don't care who you are. That was funny right there. But I look at this and think, what does this guy do? Well, they were asking the same question. What do you actually do? And then he was actually asked, who are your staff? You're allowed up to 45 based upon the budgeting. Who are they? He declines to let them know who his staff are who are being paid with tax dollars. Why is that okay? Well, the short answer is it's not okay. He knows better than that. He's not wanting to do it because he didn't want the world to start, reaching out and contacting them. Well, story here, though, dated today on Fox News. White House is silent after John Kerry laments the Ukraine war's carbon emissions. So he didn't come at it and go, loss of life, destruction of property, invasion of sovereign territory by a larger foreign national. Nope. His whole situation to look at this was through the lens of, wow, greenhouse gas emissions. Come on. Says last week, Kerry doubled down on past comments that a key consequence of the ongoing Ukraine war stemming from Russia's invasion last year is the increased global greenhouse gas emissions. His remarks were later widely condemned by conservatives and Republicans. Nikki Haley said you can't make this stuff up. And the end of the Biden-Harris administration can't come fast enough. By the way, Trump or whoever gets elected to replace Joe Biden, we bring a Republican presidency in. I'm going to tell you right now, John Kerry's out on his ear. But yeah, he did. He literally went at it saying, we're important we don't lose people's focus, he told the BBC. You're going to lose certain big country attention because they'll be diverted. It could have a damaging impact. He's very concerned about the greenhouse gas emissions, the climate efforts that a war, he says, is the last thing you need with respect to a united effort to try and deal with climate challenges. Really? I mean, I think at some point, I get it. If you think that climate is going to be impacted to some way, but recognize, sir, there's loss of life here. People don't care about whether or not you think more greenhouse gas emissions. They just want to know why they lost their family members. They want to know why their home was blown up. It's completely out of touch for him to make these ivory tower comments about greenhouse. But then what does he do? I mean, that's a moment, by the way, where you didn't have to say anything. That's a moment where you look at it and go, yeah, discretion, the better part of valor. But he did. He comes at it and he, with like completely, lacking any compunction whatsoever. He decides to describe the war in Ukraine, whose big effects are having a massive impact upon the climate with all the greenhouse gas emissions that are. He even talks about, destroying septic tanks and things like that. It's going to cause more greenhouse gas emissions. How about that? Wow. Well, how about this? People died, and they're dying daily. An entire culture is being, assaulted. But that's okay. Climate change, that's what we should be focusing on. Well, listen, I got several more on this, and we'll put a lid on it when we get back. But I'm going to tell you, the reality is you can't go down this road and expect to maintain the respect of the people who you're supposed to be leading. You're speaking inside a bubble, sir. You're not coming at this. He's not, by the way, what's he done? Have you seen policy? No. What has he done? Have you seen any action? No. Is your power bill the same as it was before? Yeah. Is he doing anything at all that we can see? No. How much is he getting paid with a $13 million annual budget fueled by tax dollars with 45 staff that he won't tell us their names? What a sham, man. What a green new steel. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. Like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, newsflash, apparently Hollywood's going on strike. That happened in the last couple of days. This is a total aside here. I couldn't help it. Because I'm looking at the Screen Actors Guild has decided to go on strike. I'm not sure when I recall the Actors Union going on strike, but the Screen Actors Guild has decided to join in solidarity with the screenwriters. So, yeah, they're on strike now. I just saw Adam Schiff. Yes, that Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff walking the picket line with the Actors Guild, carrying a union sign. And I thought to myself, well, that fits because he's an actor. Oh, sometimes I just make myself laugh. All right. Text lines are open. Let me see what we got over here real quick before I jump back into the topic. Ron from Brownsboro. He says, simply believe what liberals say. VP Harris wants to decrease the population. Abortion has worked, and now they will move toward euthanasia. Secular humanists do not believe that humans are created in the image of God. To them, humans are an invasive species who need to be eliminated. Believe what they say, no matter how crazy it seems to us. Ron, you could be right, brother. Jeff from Indiana again says, hey, Phil, how many cattle have to perish to offset the carbon output by John Kerry's private plane, the Flying Squirrel? David from Huntsville. Love that John Kerry rant. Truth is, he says, he and the cabal actually have an overall negative effect on the climate. Ukraine wouldn't have been invaded if those dummies weren't doing their damage. All right. Susan from Elkmont said, I'm old and I remember science. I think she's saying, we were taught that mammals used oxygen and plants and trees used CO2. Yeah, there was like a cycle, the cycle of life, right? Also, emissions will happen somewhere when building vehicles, either when you start the car in your driveway or the big machines digging out the ore to make the batteries. Perfectly put, Susan. Thank you so much. Raven from Russellville, reckon that Kerry's plane runs on cow farts? I doubt it. Although he is full of hot air himself, so who knows. Frank from Madison says, how much CO2 and methane does a rotting cow generate? Great point. I cannot imagine them just leaving them laying on the ground, but then again, worse things have happened. Brand spanking new in the text string. Barry from Huntsville. Appreciate you, Barry. Thank you for joining the show. John from Huntsville. Phil, I think AI hacked Kamala's teleprompter. Could be, but she is the AI czar, though, John, so surely she would know how to handle that if it did. All right, by the way, did you know she's the AI czar? Boomer?
Everybody's a czar now.
No, I mean, like, she's the vice president of the United States, and she's in
But she's
charge.
the AI czar.
The AI czar. I don't think she even understands what AI is.
No, absolutely not.
It's just, I look at it and think, what is she really bringing to the table here? When they examined her for the ticket, did they say, listen, she's so sharp, every time she speaks, people sit up and listen. And anyway.
Ta-da.
Ta-da. What is that? You know, that womp, womp, womp?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. There it is. Lowest approval ratings of any vice president in recorded history. Story on Breitbart, climate czar John Kerry flies to China for another meeting with the world's biggest polluter because Zoom wouldn't work. Now, by the way, I'm a firm believer in shaking hands, looking someone in the eye. I get it. But U.S. climate envoy John Kerry touched down in China on Sunday after flying to Beijing aboard a carbon-spewing jet for yet another series of talks with the world's single largest producer of greenhouse gases. His flight comes just days after Kerry appeared before a congressional hearing and was roundly criticized for constantly jetting around the world. By the way, he tried to say, I've never had a private jet. That's right, it was his wife that had the private jet. His wife, by the way, is the heir to the Heinz ketchup fortune. All right, so, yeah, they had a private jet. He tried to play it. I take issue with that. I never had a private jet. Your wife did. How often do you use that? Hey, honey, can I have the keys? I mean, I guarantee you. Anyway, Yeah, it's reported that Kerry will claim to use his time in Beijing to engage with Chinese officials with respect to increasing implementation. And do you know they're saying China is implementing a new coal-fired power plant almost every week. Now, I can't imagine anything being built that fast. That's like George Jetson fast. But nonetheless, it says in 2021 alone, Kerry took 48 trips lasting more than 60 hours, emitted an estimated 715,000 pounds or 325 metric tons since he first took the position of the Biden administration. And he shows no sign of stepping away. The hypocrisy knows no bounds, y'all. And you still look at it and think, okay, we gave you a budget of millions and millions of dollars, a staff of up to 45 people whose names you will not identify. I don't know what we're getting for our money. Now, I will say this. Apparently, he does not agree with the idea that liberals are floating that we should have to pay climate reparations. If you haven't heard this, I'm saying it to you now, climate reparations, because apparently we're such a polluter of the world that we need to go pay all the countries who've had to suffer because we're over here breathing and producing noxious fumes. All of our cow flatulence has caused somebody somewhere in the lower reaches of Timbuktu the greatest of angst. Well, at the very least, I will say this. John Kerry said in the Hill magazine just 3 days ago, he does not agree with climate reparations. Well, good, because I'm pretty sure it would never happen. Lastly, let me just say this. I got a piece here that came out in the Daily Caller. Daily Caller has I threw the wrong piece of paper down on the floor. Hang on one second.
Wrong one.
Lord, I got so much paper in my hands, I'm just slinging them all over the room. Daily Caller, dated 2 days ago, says, here's what our climate overlords fail to understand about fossil fuels. You know, I said that earlier in the show before the segment, that I'm okay with an all-of-the-above strategy. You want to have that's great. But don't tell us we just can't have stuff at all. Not in today's society. It's not going to work. The grid is not going to be able to sustain the amount of electrical everything you want to put in there. Natural gas burns clean. You got coal-fired plants that have been cleaned up. You've got the ability to drill with minimal impact. And oh, by the way, you've also got any number of restrictions already on vehicles that burn fossil fuels. We're not getting away from that. If you think we are, you're living delusionally. Well, someone's got to lead. We got to get out front. Great. Well, you go ahead. And I don't mind if you put up a windmill or a solar array. I don't mind. Depends on where you want to put it. Story here on Daily Caller. A guy named David Patrick Poyan. Patrick Poyan is the CEO of a company called Total Energies. He did an interview with CNBC, and he was not playing. He says, today our society requires oil and gas. There is no way to think that overnight we can just eliminate all that and rely on 10% of low-carbon energy. He says it will take decades to build a new system. If we don't invest enough, oil is not going to be $75 a barrel. It's going to be $150 or $200. And all consumers will be super unhappy and our life will be a nightmare. What he's basically saying is, if you start neglecting the infrastructure right now, the oil and gas infrastructure, then it will become issues that you have to deal with no matter what, because we're not getting away from it. Just because you say net zero does not mean we're going to achieve net zero. All right, the Green New Steel. Oh my gosh. It goes on and on and on. All right, folks, listen, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come right back. I'm going to switch gears. Have you heard about Canada? Good Lord. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world, one soundbite at a time. Hey, by the way, listen, you hear, as we go to breaks, you hear ads playing, right? I mean, of course you do. Ads are playing because that's how we support what we do and how we get it out there. So in case you did not know, Rightside Radio, we are a standalone business. The stations that we play on, that you hear us on now, those are not, they don't own us. We send them our show. And so the only way we can do that, though, is to, of course, develop the revenue streams necessary to run any other business. And that's partly done through advertising. So if you want to advertise on this show, if you hear us like, man, those guys got it going on, yeah, then just here's how you do it. You don't call the station. You go to our website, rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. And you go to the advertising and contact tab. Click on that. Send us a message. We will get back to you ASAP. And we would love to get you on the team. So yes, rightsideradio.org. Click on advertising. Send us a message. And we will be right back in touch with you if you want to advertise on Rightside Radio. Hey, listen, the text lines are indeed open. I got a couple more here. Let me see. Pegleg Dave from Gurley says, I believe John Kerry, A.K. Lurch, his jet runs on unicorn farts. What else we got here? Brian from Huntsville. Carrie's wife said no reparations, I bet. Private jet and a yacht. She told her pet to leave it alone. Nice. John from Brownsboro says, when the bovine genocide occurs, I hope they keep some DNA to grow my new steaks, and I call dibs on the choice cuts. I don't want them growing my steaks, though, bro. I do not want them growing my steaks. Just saying. All right, listen, we're going to switch gears now. So I came across an article this weekend. This is number 2 of the Triple Dipper. I came across an article this weekend. Headline was on Fox News. Story came out July 16th. I actually have a copy in my hot little hands. Let me just go ahead. And I tweeted out, have we lost Canada? And there's the national anthem for Canada is called "O Canada," and one line in it stood out to me. I looked it up because I had this recollection. The line is, "O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free." Glorious and free. And yet, the stuff that I'm about to share with you clearly indicates that it's almost like we've lost Canada at this point. Now, why is it, Phil? It's Canada. We're in Alabama. Why do we care? Because one of the largest trade partners we have in the world is Canada. In our top 3, Canada, Mexico, and China, our top 3. $3.4 billion in goods and services crosses the Canadian border every day. Every day. It's a $4.6 trillion that we gain in our trade relationship with those 3. I mean, it's unbelievable, y'all. And so that being said, it matters what happens. They're an ally. They're a trade partner. And truthfully, in some ways, while we may be separate, we're also enmeshed. I mean, look at, you got, Montreal plays in Major League Baseball. You've got, of course, you got hockey. There's a whole lot of crossover. So I've got family up in Michigan right now. I did not know the extent to which Canada was like there are people in Canada that carry Blue Cross cards because they come to the United States to get their medical treatment because they don't like theirs. It's that much of an interplay between the two. So when you see Canada going woke, and I don't mean like a little bit of woke, I mean, we see Canada going like woke. I mean, we're talking like San Francisco woke as a nation. But it's the government. The people have about had it. They are fed up right now with the way they're being treated. And it makes no sense. I mean, you look at it and think, first of all, Justin Trudeau is just a punk. Just absolutely, just so unimpressive as a beta male. And you think, how did that guy get to be president? But there he is. By the way, the interesting thing is his parents were socialists. He was raised that way. They were big fans and personal friends of Fidel Castro. Some say that there's reason to believe. Well, I won't go into that. That's never mind. Bottom line is his folks loved and hung out with Fidel Castro. Gives you an idea. End result, Canada has been moving, lurching, rushing more and more to the left in the last few years, especially under Trudeau's leadership, or lack thereof. Story that got my attention, though, comes on Fox News. Do you remember when Canada was not only shutting people down for vaccines, they were raiding churches? There was one church in particular, the name of it, I'll think of it here in 1 second. It's probably in this article. I'm sure it is. There was in Calgary, and their church, well, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is the pastor there is a guy named Artur Pawlowski. Artur Pawlowski, Pastor Pawlowski, he grew up in communist Poland. He remembers what it was like. And when the Calgary police came to his Easter services to tell him he had to shut down in the middle of Easter service, he ran them out of his church on a rail. He called them cowards if they would dare show up at his church and frighten his parishioners for no other reason except because the government said so. That same governor, that same pastor, by the way, has never stopped. He is out there making it happen. So his son is Nathaniel Pawlowski, recently testified to the European Parliament. Why did the son testify? Where's the dad? He's in jail. By the way, I take it back. He got out of jail after spending a month and a half in jail. I'll tell you about that in a second. But he's on house arrest. So his dad faces 10 years in prison after he dared to deliver a sermon to the freedom truckers who were blocking the U.S.-Canada border last year. Remember that? He went to jail for a month and a half. He is now pending charges. Y'all, this is Canada. When I'm trying to think of, all right, where's a socialist nation, that probably has tendencies to be totalitarian, I don't find myself going, how about Canada? I do now. Pawlowski was found guilty in May of mischief and breaching a release order when he delivered a 19-minute speech to truckers who were protesting federal vaccine mandates. In the speech, Pawlowski advised the truckers against their plan to go to the provincial capital of Edmonton, urging them to remain peaceful, but yet not to break the line against the government at the border. He was arrested days later, spent 50 nights in 2 separate prisons, alleging he was abused and humiliated while he was there. When we come back, I'll tell you what his son said to the EU and why it's causing a stir. And then we'll take a look at a few others, because it's amazing to think that that's actually Canada. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. I'm talking about Canada for a minute because I look at this and think, as goes Canada, so goes North America. Maybe you could say that. I don't know if you can say that in full, but I really believe that what we see, though, is we have a nation to our north, one of our biggest trade partners, for which we gain trillions of dollars in trade. And not to mention the fact that our economies along the northern border are linked in a variety of ways. Our sports are linked. There's a very strong cultural bond between, especially the northern reaches of the United States and Canada. I mean, crossing over the border is like going shopping. It's not a big deal up there. But that being said, when you look at Canada's government being more liberal even than ours, but not so far that you can't imagine that we might be right behind. What you see slipping away in Canada is right around the corner here. In some places in the United States, we're already there. But the situation that I started off talking about before the break, we have a pastor in Canada who has become a lightning rod. The Trudeau administration can't stand him. Why? Because he won't be cowed. Because he grew up in communist Poland. Because he sees things and he says, that's not going to happen. He fusses when the police want to raid his church on Easter for daring to congregate during COVID. He dared to go out and just deliver a sermon and encourage, by the way, peaceful protests to the freedom truckers who were blocking the U.S.-Canadian border. He ain't playing. He has now been arrested multiple times and he is facing up to 10 years in jail. Why? Mischief. Speaking out. His son spoke to the European Union and said he needed to draw attention to what's happening with his father and pray that we'll wind up seeing some relief come. He says, this is the son talking, he says, I myself have also been charged, he has, for preaching and reading the Bible publicly. Let me get this straight. You were arrested for reading the Bible publicly. Apparently the answer is yes. He claims the Bible, the Canadian government claims the Bible is not inclusive, it's too hateful. This is what the Canadian government is doing to us, he says. Likening Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to a modern-day Caligula, the immoral Roman emperor, right? He says all of this is being done under the guise of health, safety, and protecting us by stripping our rights and ushering in tyranny. And he goes on to say this. He said, I stood for my rights. This is the father, Artur Pawlowski. I stood for my rights. Now my son is standing for his rights. They are not satisfied with hurting the father. Now they want to hurt my children, my family, my wife. They're coming after our children. Those are the tactics of every totalitarian regime. The Gestapo did it. The KGB did it. Every totalitarian regime, every dictatorship has this playbook. This is across our border. So Justin Trudeau, the panderer-in-chief, recently went to meet with a large group of Muslim parents who were mad that they were being told that their kids have no choice but to go to school and participate in Pride Month. If they were Christians, they'd have been shut down, maybe even arrested, but at least they were allowed to speak. The video came of Trudeau speaking with the Muslim community last week at a Calgary mosque. He said hundreds of protesters rallied against gender ideology being taught at schools, chanting, "Leave our kids alone." And the frustration reached a boiling point when audio surfaced of an Edmonton public schools teacher berating Muslim students for daring to skip school to avoid having to go to Pride events. Can you imagine? So the Muslim community has just had it, and they're calling it out, and they're saying, listen, this is not freedom of religion. It's not just Christians being persecuted. You're not even hearing any of us. But what else is happening in the culture that we call our neighbor to the north? How about this? Did you know? I look at this and think, who's in charge? Could somebody, for goodness, I mean, all right, Daily Wire, story that came out 3 weeks ago. Drugs are now the leading cause of death after decriminalization in British Columbia. Decriminalization, I mean they legalized marijuana? No, they legalized all of it. They decriminalized fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and morphine. What? What did they think was going to happen? Well, we're going to make it better because we consider addiction to be a health issue. It's not a criminal justice one. It's both. How about this? I guess you don't care about the pushers, the ones who are selling the stuff, the traffickers. And by the way, it's not just a health issue in terms of mental health when someone dies of an overdose on the streets. From January to May of this year, 1,000 British Columbians, that's just one province. That's like saying Alabama. 1,000 British Columbians died from drug overdoses, a 2.9% increase over that period last year. So they legalize all of it, and then they're surprised when the numbers trend in the wrong direction. 3% increase in drug overdoses in our neighbor to the... By the way, British Columbia is like on my bucket list. It's one of the places I want to go. Unbelievable. Lastly, I'll say this. The Canadian government has gotten to the point that it's so obvious they don't have any respect for the sanctity of life. We're going to come back to that segment that I didn't get a chance to do last Friday. But let me just point this out. Story here that came out 2 days ago on U.S. News and World Report. Headline, she's 47, anorexic, and wants help dying. Canada will soon allow it. Says an expansion of the criteria for medically assisted, by the way, the young lady they're talking about, actually she's not young, she's 47, but she has an eating disorder, anorexia. And they're going to allow her probably next year to end her life with medically assisted suicide simply because she has a mental illness. It says an expansion of the criteria for medically assisted death comes into force on March 24th. It will allow Canadians whose sole underlying condition is mental illness to choose medically assisted death. Let me suggest something to you. Just a thought here. If the issue is mental illness, then should they be allowed to make a decision about their death? Because I would assume that those who are mentally ill are not likely to make as healthy a decision as those who are not mentally ill. You're going to let somebody who's got a diagnosis of mental illness, bipolar, depression, eating disorders, and say, go ahead, we can help you with that. That's like saying, the person with dementia, they can take out a bank loan. No bank's going to loan them money. They don't have capacity. That's like looking at it and going, well, we're going to let the child sign a contract. You can't do that. Children are deemed by law not to have capacity to enter into contracts. Well, we're going to go ahead and let the kid decide their gender and we'll get them a surgery. And yet you're willing to say that because somebody has a mental illness, they can decide to take their own life, and you're going to let them sign those consent forms and just enter into that agreement and then sit back and just feel good about yourselves because you plugged them full of whatever it was going to take to end their life. Canada legalized assisted death in 2016 for people with terminal illnesses. They expanded it in 2021. I'm just telling you, folks, and they are about to make it even bigger than it's ever been. They're going to lead the world in how to do what's called medical assistance in dying. It's unreal. All right, I'll wrap this segment up with a call. Is that Sparky? Sparky from Harvest. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Phil. Great show, you and Boomer.
Thanks, man.
Hey, I'm connecting some dots here, if you'll let me. The Justin Trudeau, which I consider very much a Third Reich style attitude toward independent thought, religion.
Oh, yeah.
Gleefully helping undesirables and unwanted people to commit suicide. Go back a segment to what our so-called Vice President Harris said about reducing the population so that less people have clean air to breathe. That's exactly in line. I mean, clearly there's a pogrom. I mean, there's a plan, and she just unwittingly opened her stupid yap and articulated it. But this all is extremely, extremely reminiscent of the 1930s under the National Socialist Party.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it has that. It kind of smacks of that whole Kristallnacht, where the oppression began, then the violence with the oppression began, and then they finally moved to the extermination.
I hate to draw corollaries, but John Kerry lurks with all that Botox. The man looks extremely like the walking undead to me. But he's a perfect Albert Speer, I think, to this entire operation, as far as whatever this new world government they want to bring us to. After they find a way to take away all the weapons, I think.
By the way, speaking of John Kerry, let me ask your opinion real quick. He flies all over the world as the special envoy for climate. Was this a gimme job because he couldn't get Secretary of State again? Did they give him something just to keep him quiet? Or is this really what they went in and they said, we need a special envoy? Or do you think they just gave Kerry a bone?
I think yes and yes. And I think Al Gore, who was eminently more qualified as a climate change hysterical con man, Kerry's picked up the reins rather artfully, but also Kerry is such a privileged, superior, smug character, right? I mean, he's been quite happily wealthy off of his wife's money for many, many decades. He obviously considers himself a superior person. If you heard his exact words in one of his last climate conferences over in Europe last year, where he looked around the room and said, "You understand how exceptional we are." I mean, that was his exact words as he patted himself and everybody in the room on the back for being the crust above the crust elites who are making the decision for the rest of the world on what kind of light bulbs we can have and whether we can have air conditioning or not. Unbelievable hubris, I think.
I think that's been that way for a while too, man. I mean, I date back to him, throwing his medals on the steps of the Capitol. All three of his Purple Hearts.
God bless him for serving, and I don't think he's done a useful day of work since he left the uniform.
But it did serve a political purpose. All right, Spark, we got to go to a break, brother. You have a good one. Thanks much.
All right, you too, bye.
All right, Boomer, take the break, man. We'll do that right now. We'll come back, catch up on some text messages, and move our way to the top of the hour. And don't forget, top of the hour, we'll come back and have a guest, Dr. Scott Catino. He's the president of the Faith, Family, and Freedom Coalition of Mobile. We'll talk with him about his organization, what they do, why they do it, and then at the same time, their agenda related to the annexation of additional residents into the city of Mobile. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, making common sense a superpower. All right. Hey, listen, I got some text messages to catch up on. Before I do that, I got to tell you, we got a new advertiser in the mix. We got a new team member on the Rightside team, Southern Immediate Care. You're probably hearing their ads playing right now. They're also the sponsor of our daily monologue, The Rightside Way. But Southern Immediate Care just opened their 5th location around the Birmingham area. Their newest locations overall are Chelsea and Hoover. Listen, folks, Southern Immediate Care, they're open 7 days a week. They got extended hours at most of their locations. And I'll tell you, they've also got locations in Anniston and Gadsden. By the way, this is where I go, all right? So I'm just telling you, Southern Immediate Care, I know the owners of the chain. He's an amazing guy. And Southern Immediate Care, their standards are super high. They'll see clients of all ages. Walk-ins are welcome. They're there 7 days a week. That's weekends, y'all. X-rays, immunizations right on site at most locations. I'm just telling you, if you're looking for a place to get quick medical care, if you're looking for a place where you don't have to spend all hours just trying to get an appointment, and if you're looking for a place, by the way, where the quality is going to be exactly what you need, not just want, but need, then they're going to be there for you. Southern Immediate Care. Check them out. You can find them online, and I would encourage you, give them a try. And if you, by the way, if you go in and you're signing up saying, I'm a new patient here or whatever, tell them, hey, I heard about this on Rightside Radio. I would get a kick out of hearing them tell me that. All right, so let me jump over to some text messages. I just spent some time talking today about the green new steel, about Canada, and let's see what we got here. Raven from Russellville. Is it Trudeau or Turdo? He says, I would say turd, but I don't want to insult the turd. Wow. Wow. Just so you know, Raven, Boomer's in the background. He loved that one. Brian from Huntsville, with regards to the Pastor Pulowski, says, house arrest. I hope he changed his legal residence to church building. Interesting. Wade from Huntsville sent me a link, and I can't check it out. Wade, when you send me Huntsville's, man, links, man, I can't just check those out. Jeff from Indiana. Phil, we let Democrats vote in this country, and Lord knows they have to be mentally ill to believe what they believe. So what's the difference? Okay. Ron from Tuscumbia. And Canada wonders why they're on fire. By the way, I got family lives up in the Detroit area right now. They're having to watch the air quality and keep the kids inside right now because the Canadian wildfires, and a big part of that they're saying is because the liberals are not allowing, the environmentalists are not allowing them to do basic, land management, like where you go to control burns and keep all the underbrush, and then it gets out of hand when you haven't done anything to control it along the way. It's causing huge issues on the northern states right now, the smoke coming across. David from Huntsville just texted in, says John Kerry and Anthony Fauci are the primary images of smugness. There you go. And that was David from Huntsville. I'm sorry. John from Huntsville says, we don't need to reduce the human population. We need to reduce the population of stupid political leaders by electing smarter political leaders. That sounds like I got to play the jackassery button on that one. That's pretty good. All right, listen, we're coming back up at the top of the hour here. We're going to have a conversation. Here's my plan. I decided to do a running segment all this week, a running dipper, if you will. This is like a giant dipper. It's going to go multiple days. The goal is this. I'm going to go to number 3 on the triple dipper. I'm calling it sharing the battle space. So I can just tell you when I was in Baghdad, we had our own area of operations. So I had the Rasafa district, parts of Adamiyah, and parts of Sadr City, very difficult districts. And yet there were other units that had the neighboring sectors, right? So if you looked at the map, we could lay it out, and I could say, all right, 2162 is here, 3153 is over there, and we knew who was in what district. You didn't go run an operation. I mean, you might pass through. You're driving through. You may have no choice, but you didn't run an operation in somebody else's lane. If you did that, you ran the risk of collateral damage. You ran the risk of fratricide. And then you also, by the way, didn't really have the clear ability to call for backup. And I'll never forget one time, we had some guys that, they got into it, man. They were inspecting a building. It was part of what's called the Iraqi Survey Group. And their job was to seek out weapons of mass destruction. Of course, they didn't find any. They found tons of precursors. and they were checking out one particular building, which had been booby-trapped, and it went off, and it leveled the building. It killed several of their people. We didn't know they were there, so we had no reason to hear an explosion in the distance and run to their aid. You don't do that. You don't get into somebody else's battle space and not let them know you're there and have the coordination necessary so you can help each other. So you can run, operations in conjunction with each other. In terms of sharing the battle space, though, what about the idea that conservatives operate in the same arenas sometimes? Who's out there? Who do you know? And by the way, what is your cause? Is there something you're passionate about? There may be a group already out there who is so in tune with that particular thing that you don't have to recreate the wheel. And you may not even know they're in your backyard. So every day this week at 4 o'clock, I intend to tell you and to have on somebody to talk about another conservative organization operating right here in Alabama. They may actually touch on some of your passion points. We'll see. Coming up next, Dr. Scott Catino, Faith, Family, and Freedom Coalition of Mobile. We'll hear what he has to say. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios for hour number 3 today. Local, state, national, man, we cover down on all the issues. And yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. So, all right, we're heading off into the third of the Triple Dipper for the day. So Triple Dipper number 3, I call this one Sharing the Battle Space. So listen, like I said before the break, when you are the commander of a certain area of operations, you want to know who else is in your battle space. Or you have allies there? Do you have units you can coordinate with? Can you interlink your efforts? Is there a means to direct your lines of effort in such a way that your combined effort is bigger than what it would have been? Is one of the other organizations a force enabler, a force multiplier? That being said, here's the deal. Conservatives have got to make sure that we do not become so myopic in our view towards one organization that we forget that there's others. We may have a passion point in our life that is specific to something that someone else is already doing good work in, and we can just jump on board. So I told you this week, every day at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be taking another organization that is currently operating within the state of Alabama in whatever capacity for conservative values. And we're going to talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it, maybe how you might want to get on board. So with that being said, I just became aware recently of the Faith Family Freedom Coalition of Metro Mobile. Now you may be saying, Phil, you're a North Alabama show. Yeah, I mean, we cover over half the state. We have a lot of listeners in Mobile, actually. A lot of supporters down there, too. Well, Dr. Martin Scott Catino, goes by Scott Catino, is the president of Faith Family Freedom Coalition of Metro Mobile. He's a U.S. Fulbright scholar. He and his wife, Lisa, serve as Alliance Defending Freedom's ambassadors for Alabama. I'm a big fan of ADF. He's served all over the world in a variety of capacities in research posts for diverse entities like the Department of Defense, FBI, private security programs, with a focus on civil unrest, terrorism, and insurgency. His most recent field studies, very recently, include researching civil unrest in Northern Ireland, Panama, and the Dominican Republic. Anyway, without further ado, let me go and just bring him on right now with great credentials. Dr. Catino, Phil Williams here. How you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing real well, Phil. Thanks again for having me here. I really appreciate being on the show.
Well, thank you. I know you were on a couple of other shows that I'm extremely familiar with. I think Greg Davis, you were on his show, and then you've also been on, right, I think, Jeff Poor's show down in Mobile, I believe.
KRG.
Yeah.
That's the show before that, right.
There you go. Well, listen, let me just do this. I mean, you've got a background that's pretty interesting, pretty diverse. But you're out there in the middle of what I would call the conservative battle space. If you don't mind, just take a minute and sort of unpack your organization, what y'all do, and how you do it.
Yes, again, thank you for this opportunity. Our Faith Family Freedom Coalition Metro Mobile, like many other organizations, we're dedicated to Judeo-Christian values and promoting them because obviously they're under attack.
Yeah.
And also our constitutional liberties. But what we've seen is just a major uptick in the last couple of years here in Mobile of organized, very highly skilled subversive groups, particularly the Human Rights Campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And a bunch of left-wing radicals like the DEI crowd who have so embedded themselves in the mayor's office and have complete support from him. So we're getting together and we've reacted to this by putting together a coalition. We say we're not a new group, Phil. We work with Tea Party. We work with Eagle Forum, just good conservative people. We mobilize action and we form into teams. We have specific teams that work in the educational area, the political arena, the church arena, the information arena. As a military man, you understand that. We've got to get into those key operational areas and be able to effectively make change and promote these values.
So y'all are a values-based organization, and some would say a principled-based organization. When you're out there you're working at the grassroots level, obviously, because you're a locally centered organization. Are you affiliated with national organizations at all?
We work closely with Alliance Defending Freedom. They have been such an extraordinary resource with their insights, their legal advice, and just so many other services that they offer.
Well, so are you guys volunteer led? Do you have a budget? I mean, how's this work? Do you have the ability to rally up folks for going downtown and marching on the city council or whatever if you had to?
We're a nonprofit corporation, and what we do is we make sure that we're well linked with all the other conservative grassroots groups. And so, yes, we have that ability to where we can certainly mobilize action, and we can stand up on issues like this very important issue of annexation.
Yeah, and so the benefit of my listeners, and we've talked about it before, the potential is there right now. The city council just recently approved the idea of allowing a referendum, a vote of the people in West Mobile County out towards the airport area that could, if they approved it, then upwards of 25,000 or so local residents would become, residents of the city of Mobile, making them effectively the second largest city in the state overnight. And I think many people thought this was kind of moving along without controversy. But your organization came in and began putting up billboards and sort of rallying the grassroots against the effort. So talk about that some more.
Yeah, people are surprised when I start off by saying I'm actually not against the concept of annexation. If this was Governor Ron DeSantis and his leadership in a specific area and his type of administration, I would be the loudest proponent for annexation. But we don't have Ron DeSantis here. We now have a city government under Mayor Stimson who has so galvanized and has so energized the DEI, this horrific race-based discriminatory system that he says he is comprehensively pushing across all the city departments. So we have a system of inequality that they want to now push into the western areas of Mobile. So with annexation is going to come this DEI program, which is really going to continue to harm a lot of people. And secondly, last year he appointed 2 liaisons from the Human Rights Campaign. And if your audience isn't aware of them, understand that this is the leading organization that promotes grooming, that promotes destroying parental rights, and literally publishes guides on how to subvert and undermine churches. And so Mayor Stimson empowers them. And not surprisingly, we have a major uptick in drag queen type shows and activities and assertiveness from the radical LGBT community.
So let me ask you this, because I know Mayor Stimson personally. I know his family and him. And that being said, I've also known him to be a man of faith. I was at a meeting not long ago where he was the one who was praying over the meeting. Have you met with the mayor? Have you discussed these things with him? Is there an opportunity for dialogue on some of this?
Right after he made the appointments, we had requested an opportunity to sit and discuss these issues, and we did. We spoke for over 2 hours, where I was able to very specifically state the issue here has nothing to do with LGBTQ. Nothing to do with that. These are radical LGBTQ. This is like the difference between, he tries to push this policy, let me back up, of Mobile for all. We're not saying that he can't have someone from an LGBTQ community to be an advisor. We don't oppose that. But when he picks the most radical organization that has an agenda of destroying our Constitution and really harming children, and he empowers them, that's a major problem. And now they want to annex and promote and push that to the West. This is our concern.
Okay, and I hear that too. So I mean, I remember fussing on the air not long ago when they painted the cannon downtown in rainbow colors, and I take issue. I mean, the Human Rights Campaign has been the target of my angst on this show several times. That being said, is the mayor's office willing to negotiate? And let me ask you this: if the mayor's office said, "Okay, you know what, we'll get rid of the Human Rights Campaign and I'll axe the DEI staff," would that change your position, or is this something that is?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I'm sorry. For one thing, the infrequent communications I have with his office, I make it crystal clear: this is not personality based. This is not an anti-any person. We are just so concerned about these children. We are just so concerned about what the HRC has done in other areas of Alabama with these SOGI laws, sexual orientation, gender ideology laws, and how they threaten Christian liberties and parental rights. That's our concern.
And so, do you have churches rallying with you? I mean, what's the base look like for your effort?
I am very glad to say more recently, extraordinary leadership we're seeing now of pastors, and particularly Pathway Church with Pastor Travis Johnson, who recently put together a letter of originally 45 local pastors and leaders, really protesting in a really, really nice Christian spirit, this uptick and assertion of these radical LGBTQ ideas, but particularly the assault on children. So we're seeing quite a bit now of pastoral leadership supporting the kind of movement that we are definitely promoting here.
Okay, so if the mayor's office were to say, okay, we hear you, and we'll tone it down or do away with it altogether, I guess would be the better. Then you're not opposed, because some would say annexation brings with it city services. It brings with it, the ability to have police and fire coverage that maybe you don't have some right now. But then there's other issues like, does it bring taxation, stuff like that. So all said and done, this is going to be a referendum. The people are going to vote on this, and I think I think your efforts have gained traction from what I'm hearing from my sources down there. What do you think if the vote were tomorrow? By the way, the vote is what, a month from now? Is that right?
Yeah. The vote is tomorrow on annexation.
Oh, it's tomorrow. I don't know why I was thinking it was August 18th. Okay, so it's tomorrow.
Yeah, it's actually tomorrow. So if I could just quickly back up.
Yeah.
So the notion of services and departments being extended. I'm sorry, but each one of these has a DEI agenda. Let me just briefly talk about the Parks and Rec department.
I tell you what, hey Scott, let me do this. We're up against a break that I've got to take right now. Can you hang on through the break, and we'll just continue this conversation right afterwards? Let's do that.
Sure.
All right, we're with Dr. Scott Catino. He's the president of the Faith, Family, and Freedom Coalition of Metro Mobile, an organization that sprang up for grassroots reasons down there, promoting faith-based solutions, conservative policies, and is right now in the grassroots effort to basically convince people not to vote for annexation in Mobile. You guys stay tuned. We got more where that came from. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, we're going right back now with Dr. Scott Catino. He's the president of the Faith, Family, and Freedom Coalition of Metro Mobile, and their efforts right now with regards to the annexation. By the way, I say all the time on this show, folks, that getting involved in something at the grassroots level is just as important as anything you might do towards like Washington, D.C. I mean, never underestimate the value of local grassroots. And so that being said, let me jump back in with Dr. Catino. Hey, Scott, thank you for spending some time with us. Thanks for holding on during the break. That might be a little bit longer than we had even thought you might be able to stay on, but thank you for that. You were just about to head down another train of thought there. You want to jump back on it?
Sure. So, the argument of the city government under the mayor's leadership is that annexation is going to be an extension of these high-quality services, and he mentioned several departments, including the Parks and Rec. Let me give you a couple quotes from the Park and Rec. Last February, during Black History Month, they ran DEI seminars pushing this ideology of inequality. So there's the indoctrination that's happening and being pushed. And this 2 years ago, I want to call attention to what they did. For Black History Month, they ran a film on Judas and the Black Messiah. It's a glowing tribute to the Black Panther leader, Fred Hampton. Hampton was an avowed communist who advocated mass killing and violence against the police, government, local business, and the community. Here's what Fred Hampton had to say, and they even quote this in the movie to a degree. Here's what Fred Hampton said, quote, "Kill a few and get a little satisfaction. Kill some more and you get some more satisfaction. Kill them all and you get complete satisfaction," end quote. And that's the message that they're pushing through. So this is a problem. When this ideology gets into the city government and they begin to promote it, it creates hate. It creates division. It does more than just create a system of inequality. This has proven to be a problem in many other areas, and this is what the mayor is promoting. No, he's not a radical socialist. What he is an accommodationist and an opportunist that's doing and saying anything for political power. And this is done on the backs of the people, and that's what concerns us. So yes, you're going to start seeing the parks. You're going to see the health department that says it no longer believes in equality. It now believes in equity, including resource redistribution. So this is the kind of system that is going to be pushed into the annexed areas, and it's very problematic.
All right, so they go to the polls tomorrow. Let me ask you this. We only have about 2 minutes left. The city council, you're talking about the mayor a lot. What about the city council? I would assume they have some say. My recollection of dealing with things in the city council down there is the mayor and the city council are often butting heads. Where are they on this issue, real quick?
No, they're not butting heads. We had Scott Jones, who was an outstanding council person, and he had stepped out. He was a true voice for the people and conservative Christian principle. We simply don't have that. And unfortunately, the city council is promoting this annexation, and it's not getting the attention. In fact, they keep running their cover messaging. They keep running their front strategy that this is going to help the people. It's just nonsense. It is a very destructive ideology.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, Scott, we appreciate your time. And the council member you talked about, I remember talking about him on the show too, and I'm a little concerned that somebody would run for office, feel frustrated, and then just quit. And I think that needs to be addressed. But he may have had some great ideas, but he chose not to stick it out and work those ideas right now. The other thing, about the mayor's office, I'll be honest with you, just because I know him personally, I will tell you that I know him to be a man of faith. My hope is that whichever way this election goes, that you'll be able to sit down with him and try to figure this thing out, because sooner or later there's going to be a reckoning. And I agree with you on the things we don't want to see being bled into other parts of the community. But I also think that this particular mayor, he might hear that, and I'm hoping that's the case. All right. Hey, Scott Catino, president of the Faith, Family, and Freedom Coalition of Metro Mobile. We appreciate your time today and for letting us know about your organization.
Thank you very much, Phil. I really enjoyed the time here.
All right,
God bless
thank you, sir.
Have a great day.
Take care. You too. All right, we're going to come right back. I'm going to keep this thing going. There's a whole lot to be said for the fact that there are other groups out there doing stuff, and we got to know, who are we sharing the battle space with? You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. I mean, we covered down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That'd be this one. That would be Alabama. And I mean, this show sends its signal like way on down south of Birmingham, way up north of Huntsville, all the way over to Tuscaloosa, back over again to Gadsden, and parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, before I go any further, I got to tell you guys, ZLA Solutions, I know these folks personally. You hear their ads on the show all the time. They've been with us since the very beginning. ZLA Solutions, they are like really like epic good at helping businesses find solutions that make their business better. That's it. Their whole mission in life, help you make your business better. And one of the ways they do that, by the way, is staffing. So if you need people, I mean, it could be one or two, the special niche skills, hard to find, or it could be, an entire shift of people to run a factory or staff out a hospital or do whatever. It doesn't matter. They work with big name employers all over North Alabama and beyond, really. And they are epic good at putting people and jobs together. They can do the recruiting, the background checks, the drug testing if necessary. Blue collar, white collar, no collar, it don't matter, I always say. So yeah, ZLA Solutions, they are there for you. Check them out at their website, zlausa.com. That's zlausa.com. And tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that. All right, let's talk for a minute about sharing the battle space. So here's the thing. We always talk about get out there and get her done. Get involved. There may be a place for you somewhere, something that's going on right around your community, something in your state, something even at the national level. Yeah, but Phil, how do I do that? Well, folks like what you just heard a moment ago, this guy, Scott Catino, president of the Faith, Family, and Freedom Coalition in Mobile, he's got an organization that just grassroots it, all right? That's what they do. They've got local churches and other folks of like-mindedness that are banding together. Do you know who else is around you? And there's different kinds, by the way. There's different kinds of conservative advocacy groups. So just a quick rundown of some possibilities. There's policy groups, and you hear my friend Stephanie Smith, who runs the Alabama Policy Institute that I used to be with, and that's what they do. They advocate for conservative policies, and sometimes they even advocate right inside the bubble. Now, you might call it lobbying, but other times they're really just providing information and research and sort of white papering things so that organizations or politicians can know the stance to take. That's policy. Then there's legal. We hear my friend Matt Clark from the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty come on all the time. You have Alliance Defending Freedom that Scott Catino just mentioned. You got another one called First Liberty Institute. You got the Pacific Legal Foundation. I mean, these are organizations that are out there, and their mission in life is just to go to court for basic constitutional rights and maintaining conservative policy. So yeah, there's policy, there's legal, then there's political. You want to be involved in electing candidates. You want to be involved in finding them, and that would be like a Tea Party organization, or for that matter, even the local Republican Party or the state Republican Party. And then, okay, how about faith-based? You're an organization that wants to promote Christian values in your community. Well, that one I mentioned a minute ago, Scott Catino's organization, they lean that way. They got other organizations like ALCAP. ALCAP is the Alabama Citizens Action Project. It's basically an adjunct of the Southern Baptist denomination here in the state of Alabama. ALCAP's been run by some great people, including my friend Greg Davis, who has the show after me on our Birmingham affiliates. So yeah, policy, legal, political, even faith-based. Or how about one you just want to focus in on something like education reform, Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty is like one of the fastest growing advocacy organizations in the nation. We've had one of their local reps on most recently from up here in North Alabama. Education reform is a huge deal. You want to see a new school board in your area. You want to see textbooks, pulled out that are filled with wokeness. What about family values? Maybe there's an organization like, I don't know, the Family Research Council. And they promote traditional family values and the upholding of the family and strengthening parental rights and going after things that deal with families. And then there's just like general advocacy, like we go after conservative stuff in general. Or how about specific advocacy? You're a Second Amendment person, the NRA. So all I'm saying is there's about 150 different ways to skin that cat. What you got to do is figure out what you like, what your passion point is. Where do I want to get involved? What's my issue? What are my principles? And I would say if you find your passion point, you will find your purpose at that point. So you find the things that just fire you up. Like, man, if I could fight for Second Amendment rights, if I could fight for school kids, if I could get newly elected conservative politicians involved, whatever. You have no idea, by the way, what it means to have a local guy running for office and have people show up on a Saturday morning to go knock on doors. It's huge. You have no idea what that means. Let me give you a quote. When I talk about sharing the battle space, I'm talking about literally knowing who's there. So you might wind up pulling your efforts together. Like, for instance, you may find that Alliance Defending Freedom is supporting a case, and Matt Clark from the Center for Law and Liberty might get involved with it also. And you might find then that they need support, so you're going to contribute some dollars or some time. Or you might know a lawyer who can help write a brief. It's amazing what can happen when you combine efforts. Here's a quote. This is General John Shalikashvili. He was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs back in 2010. And General Shalikashvili said this about sharing the battle space. He said, "It is not enough to be joint." That means, combined forces. It's not enough to be joint when conducting future operations. We must find the most effective methods for integrating and improving our interoperability with allied and coalition partners. Although our armed forces will maintain decisive unilateral strength, we expect to work in concert with allied and coalition forces in nearly all of our future operations, and increasingly our procedures, programs, and planning must recognize this reality. That was him talking about what I just said on a battlefield. Go ahead and consider Alabama your battlefield. What would you do? Where would you get involved? What's your passion point? And is there an organization already out there? And if there's not one, maybe you just go fill that void. Maybe you just go out there and find a way. I'm going to tell you right now, like Dr. Catino, it's obvious they're opposed to the annexation. That's his piece right now. But I wouldn't be a bit surprised to find out there's 3 other things that he and Mayor Stimson could work on. I'm just saying. So it may be something today that you're opposed to. The next day you may find that organization is actually headed down a road you believe in, and y'all can pull your resources. So I'm just suggesting to you, you find your passion point and you get on it, and you go send the message that we are going to interlock our efforts, and where we can, we will work together, and you'll get more done that way. But it won't happen if you sit at home. It just won't. It won't. And maybe you feel like, who's going to listen to me? Let me tell you something, man. In my campaign, when I ran for the first time for the state senate, it was grassroots climbing uphill. And we got out there, and there were people, to this day, there are people still involved in politics right now who had never done a political thing. But we were able to put together, I'm just speaking, I know I'm not the only one. I'm just saying, like, we were able to, in my campaigns, we were able to pull together people who saw a way forward that had never been done in our area. We beat the unions. We beat the teachers union. We beat all their money. We came in and we took back ground that had been lost years before. And folks, when you consider that in the history of all of Etowah County where I live, only 2 people had ever been a Republican holding that office, me being one of them. That tells you there was some serious ground we had to take back. And it was all because I had an army of volunteers, people who just gave time. I used to have a thing on the wall when I was in youth ministry full time. It said, volunteers are a gift from God. Yes, they are. So you find your passion point, you get out there and get busy. I guarantee you, you will find a way to feel like you are getting something done. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We'll take that break about a minute before the usual time. We'll come right back. I'll catch up on a few text messages, see where we're headed. And listen, I'm just telling you, sharing the battle space, you got to know who's out there. So every day this week, the plan is at 4 o'clock, there's going to be another organization telling you what they do around Alabama, give you an idea where you can plug in. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time, making it cool to be a conservative, and making common sense a superpower. There's all my mantras. I got a caller on the line. Is that Jeff? Jeff from Indiana. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, Phil. I've made it through Nashville.
Nice.
Everything's going good now.
Nice. You're making good time today.
Yeah.
What?
Let me help you Alabama boys out for a change here.
Okay.
I guess the legislature's in a special session right now to redraw the district line.
That is true.
I can help you out on that. You don't need to draw any other new lines.
Okay.
You just need to have the legislature declare that everyone in Alabama identifies as a black. Per the government, I mean, that's all you have to do is the government now sees everyone as being black. You don't have to redraw the lines or anything. And in purview of the Supreme Court mandate, you don't have to change anything.
You know what? I think you may be onto something, man.
Well, yeah. If you can declare that you're a woman and the government sees you as a woman and gives you all the rights of a woman, why can't the government just see everyone as being black and say, we've met the letter of the law? This
is how Boomer and I are going to go out to California and get reparations too. We're gonna go out there and get us some of that reparation money because we identify as black now. That's the way it's going to work.
Certainly, I mean you can identify as a furry or a man or woman, or you can identify as a rock, I guess, anymore if you want to. And the government says, hey, that's nothing wrong with that. So, you might want to stick that bug in Kay Ivy's ear and just say, hey, we can get around this now. Just, instead of redrawing the lines, we just need to redraw the ethnicity.
You know what, though? They don't have to be the whole state. You just have to have a few more in certain places to identify as however, and next thing you know, you've got the numbers you need. That's all they got to do.
Yeah. On the next census, just tell everybody to identify as black.
Oh man, this is scheming right here. This is called scheming. All right, brother. Hey, be safe on the way home. All right.
All right, Phil. Thank you. Now.
See you, buddy. What else I got here? Some text messages. Jerry from Decatur texted in, and I'm not sure where we were in the show when he texted this, so I'll just read it. He said, "No lies of the truth. Anti-truth is anti-Christ. There's an anti-Christ spirit in the world today. We need to be very discerning and call it what it is and who they are, a liar." There you go. All right. David from Huntsville wants to know, he says, can the mayor talking about Mayor Stimson in Mobile, can the mayor be trusted if he says he will not go with DEI and radical pride groups? The answer to that is yes. If he says he's not going to go with them, then I personally believe that he would keep his word. But, then again, I don't know all the ins and outs of what's happening in the mayor's office right now. I just know him personally. That's all. Mike from Decatur. Okay, he sent something. I don't know what we're saying. All right, I've got to read his extremely long text and then his corrective text. So I'll come back to that one. Mike from Decatur. Brian from Huntsville. He says, GFC. God, he made me. Family, God placed him in my trust. Country, USA was given to me to protect all of the above. God, family, country. Amen. There you go, Brian. Thanks, brother. John from Huntsville. He says, Phil, I felt like today's show ran very smoothly, was very informative. You even started the third dipper a lot earlier than you usually do and completed it with plenty of time to spare. So you win today's show with an A++. Boomer comes up a little short with an A+, but it was still a great effort.
I like that he knows exactly how he's scoring all the time. Mike from Rainbow City, though, he says, I identify as tax exempt.
Nice. I join you in this.
Yes.
How do we make this work? I'm sorry. I'm tax exempt.
Thank you, Mike from Rainbow City. That's perfect.
Yeah. Right here in home turf.
That's right.
All right, listen, so coming up the rest of the week, like I said, the goal is right now, I've got them scheduled. If everything stays intact, we have organizations lining up. Some are national, some are local, who do good work around the state of Alabama right now. My intent right now is we have Americans for Prosperity tomorrow. We have, I believe it's Eagle Forum on Wednesday. Then we have Club for Growth on Thursday. And then we have the Alabama Policy Institute on Friday. So you guys stay tuned. When we I don't know that I've ever had a multi-day dipper. Boom. Have I ever done that? I don't think I have.
I don't think so. Not when I've been here.
So last week was movie week. Every day had a movie in the monologue. This week is what am I gonna call it? Grassroots week
Yeah,
something.
I like it. I like the themes you're going with right now for a week long thing.
I don't know
like
what's happening. It's like my brain is running in overdrive. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, we'll do that and cover down on that. And some of these, like I said, are national organizations like Moms for Liberty. You know, we had the local rep for Moms for Liberty on the show, 3 weeks ago, I guess, thereabouts. Did a dynamic job on the show, too. Need to get her back on. But that's part of a national organization. And by the way, I want to remind you, Moms for Liberty. I mean, listen to that name, Moms for Liberty. How can you not love that? But Moms for Liberty started off with two moms down in Florida who were just ticked because they couldn't get anything, the school board wouldn't listen to a word they had to say. So they just started their own grassroots organization. It is now the fastest growing grassroots organization in the nation with chapters, I want to say, in 43 states, including Alabama. So, yeah, I mean, listen, don't underestimate the ability of moms to get busy, all right? But it's not just moms, it's everybody. Find your space. Find your passion point, and then just go at it. And when you do, if nothing else, text us here at the show. We'll find you an organization to plug into if we have to. You just let us know. But if you just did Google and you wrote conservative groups for name your cause, Second Amendment in Alabama, you may find them. And they're out there. There's good people doing good things at every single turn on every single day, and we can't do without them, man. This is 2024 election season already underway right now. We got to make our voices heard, y'all. I'm not equivocating on that at all. We have got to find a way to make our voices heard and to get that into the arena right now, because if you think you can wait till Election Day to figure it out, well, the race is over by Election Day. Heck, the race is over, by election week, election month. The foundation that we lay for this election season is right now. What do you want to make sure is heard more of? And I got news. The other side, they're as noisy as anything, and they're ruthless. And they will go at it, and they will lie, and they will cheat, and they will just take it all as they can. Don't let them have their way. We've got to be louder in a more respectful and orderly manner, but we've got to be louder. All right, there it is. That's the day. We'll come up tomorrow. We'll have more on sharing the battle space. In the meantime, you guys have an amazing night. Boomer and I back here tomorrow at 2. We'll see you then.